You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 192.4. Dave Chanley reacts to the IndyCar season opener in St. Petersburg with a bit of a season preview.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengels.
I am here with Dave Chanley. We're here to talk some IndyCar. A few times on the Central Indiana Sports Report so far, I've talked about IndyCar, and I could not talk more glowingly about where it is right now, the competition level in particular. A couple things I'd like to see, like a couple more super speedways, Michigan, Pocono, but they've got a really nice balance right now of Americans and foreigners, older guys and younger talent. It's just a really good and the competition from week to week, literally any team could have somebody up front, as we saw today, where there were times where the smaller teams were competitive up front. Of course, the final results had Ganassi, Penske, but overall, the balance of this league has been fantastic. And today was a great start because I think everyone who's a contender had at least a decent day. Of course, Pato O'Ward had a bad day, but he finished 11th. So
yes,
not a horrible day for where he started. Dave, welcome to the Central Indiana Sports Report once again.
Glad to be here. Yes, it's Indy racing time again, and that's one of my favorites, and it's just fun to.
And that's why I thought of you. I always like talking IndyCar with you.
Yeah, I love it, and I followed yesterday through the qualifications and today, and it's funny. I mentioned to you, it's funny how at the end of the race, Ganassi and Penske are always there.
They always find a way to get to the front. I think I texted you at one point during the race. Palou versus New Garden's exactly probably what you want to see. The Indy 500 champion, the national champion, both multiple times. And we got a little help from Stingray Rob holding up Alex Palou a little bit, but Alex was the class of the field once again.
Yes, he was, and he got the lead. Basically, Dixon was right there. And Dixon had a malfunction in his radio. And I know that Dixon's lead engineer this year is Brad Goldberg, who is nephew of one of my good friends. And he texted me after the race, not Brad, but Bob did. And he said they were trying to get him in 3 laps earlier, but they had no way to communicate. So he was just going by the fuel marker on his car. Thus, the under and over was he was supposed to come in at the same time Palou, and of course he didn't, and Palou got the jump, which Dixon was disappointed afterwards in the comments. He said, we had a car to win.
He definitely had the car to win.
Yeah.
But when you have mistakes like that, a guy like Palou, 3-time reigning champion, just best driver in the world right now.
You'd have to say he's in that conversation, no question. And these, of course, when you talk IndyCar, you're talking the fastest race cars in the world. And
and the most competitive racing series in the world, I believe.
It is. And I looked down through the field, and there are some teams this year. It was like musical chairs with some of the drivers.
It really was a wild off season.
Yes, and I think it's going to make for better racing, and already competitive, but I think now it's going to be really competitive from venue to venue.
Yeah, it's amazing. Today we had a race where the national champion goes out and leads with 20 laps left, around there. He's being chased down by another champion who's also the Indy 500 reigning champion. And it was about a C+ finish for an IndyCar race because you pretty much knew who was going to win by the end. And IndyCar has gotten to the point, even on the street courses, of having dramatic finishes all the time. That's what sets it apart from Formula One and even from NASCAR. NASCAR still has a lot of dramatic finishes, but not from week to week like IndyCar does.
I agree with that. IndyCar is just fun. And
they found the right formula.
Yes, they did. And I want to go back to last year. I went personally attended 2 races. Of course, one of those, the 500. But last year, my granddaughter, who is a racing fan, she convinced me to go to Lebanon, Tennessee. And I want to say that was one of the best races I've ever seen. The competition, the passing, it's a 1.5-mile track.
Right.
It is
perfect
fast.
for IndyCar.
It is perfect for IndyCar, and they put on a show, and it was just a great race. And I said afterwards, I will be back.
Yeah. I imagine that's what happens in a lot of places. That's why the Indy 500 is sold out every year, because at the end of the race, everybody says, I'll be back.
Yes.
It's
indeed.
the same people year after year. There's some rotation, but mostly the same people year after year, because they can't imagine their lives without going every year.
My favorite day of the year. It is every year my favorite day of the year. As I walk in to that big hallowed ground, every time I say, this is my favorite day of the year. And it is phenomenal.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's one of the greatest sporting events in the world to attend, for sure. I say it's the biggest race in the world. Everyone, when I was in Europe, when I lived as an exchange student, everyone in the world knew when I said Indianapolis what it meant. And, and
no question.
When you talk about from what the regular season means to what the championship means, IndyCar has to be number one, because the championship is the Indy 500. Being national champion is great, but being Indy 500 champion is what makes the series.
Absolutely. Every one of those drivers would trade anything for the Indy 500. That's immortality.
That's right.
And you are famous for life, and you should never have to go anywhere and pay for a meal or whatever again. Or if you're out of money, somebody's going to pay to come speak. It is just, you are a legend at that point.
That's right.
And we still have some of the young guns chasing that legend.
That's right. And all of them, really.
Yes.
Newgarden's won the last couple. Marcus Ericsson, if you consider him a young gun, maybe got his. But really, the guys who are the best drivers in the world, and I think right now you could make an argument that it's Alex Palou and Pato O'Ward.
Yes.
Both of those guys have been close to winning the 500, and they need that stamp on their careers.
They do, and those are the two. They headline, they're the face right now of IndyCar. And
with Newgarden.
And those two guys, you're right. They need an Indy win. And they're young enough, they're gonna be there, they're gonna have a shot at it.
They're gonna have plenty of chances. Of course, both of those guys have gotten looks at Formula One, so they're probably gonna want to win now. So there is a possibility that.
I know that's a big alert, and it's probably loads of money.
Yes.
But they
and fame.
IndyCar
doesn't compare worldwide to Formula One when it comes to fame. That's for sure. When it comes to competition, when it comes to drama, when it comes to great racing, and where one of any 11 guys could win from week to week, it's not even close.
Yeah.
If you want great racing, it's not Formula One.
Correct. I agree. Let's talk about some of the teams here.
Let's do that. As we talk about the St. Pete race and kind of look ahead to the 2025 season.
Penske, of course, Penske and Ganassi headline, but Errol McLaren's there as well. But when you look at Penske, you got Newgarden, McLaughlin, and Power. Now, Scott McLaughlin has to be kind of down at this point because he probably should have won that race. He had everything going his way, but the strategy just played out against him.
It did.
And that settled for a fourth place finish.
And it seemed like a bad strategy. And I think all it was a split strategy. And it allowed Newgarden to go contend for the win. And it fell wrong for McLaughlin.
Yeah, I agree. Looking at Ganassi team, of course, Dixon's been there many years. He's almost, he will be 45 in July. He's 44 years old. At some point, most race drivers start to fade. He hasn't yet.
He hasn't at all.
No, he's still going. And wow, he's an incredible story, because everybody, when you think, okay, what's the strategy? And everybody looks around and say, where's Dixon? Because you
That's
know
right.
they're going to be on top of the strategy.
Every time you say, oh, well, Dixon's a lap down or Dixon had to go in an early pit, that means he's going to win. And that's never been the case in the history of the sport. It is with more guys now. It happens more often. But, man, Scott Dixon just seems to do it every single time, turns something bad into something good. Dave, I rank him in IndyCar history as the number 3 driver of all time.
You would have to be going, okay, you'd have to say Foyt and Andretti.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Foyt's probably has the better IndyCar career. Andretti, I would make the greatest driver in history. He won world championships. He won national championships, the Indy 500, the Daytona 500. You can't I don't think anybody can compare to that. Foyt's the only one who was even close.
Yeah.
And as far as IndyCar racing, I think, I mean, say what you want about Rick Mears and Al Unser and Bobby Unser and all the greats that came ahead of them. And I don't think anyone has had the type of career as Scott Dixon.
Scott Dixon.
Only the 1-500 really detracts from that. But
yes. But everything else, he is just, well, today he wanted to win that race pretty bad because that's probably one of the only venues he hadn't won.
That's right.
And another second place finish. But he is an Indy 500 champion. You can't take that away. He probably was within a hair of a couple of miscues, maybe 2 more. And you're right when you mention all the greats, and you have to mention Mears and the Unser family. And but Mario Andretti is, whenever you say
the standard.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I remember at one time people were saying, is Michael Schumacher the greatest driver of all time? I said, he's won in Formula One. That's it.
Yeah.
Mario Andretti won at everything, including dirt tracks. And anything you put him in, he won. And I don't think with the way racing is set up today, I don't think anyone can ever top his accomplishments.
I agree. And I've never met the man, but
I have.
Of all people, they say he's a class act.
I have, and I want to tell you, I felt bad for cheering against him for the previous 30 years when I met him because he was the nicest celebrity I've ever met.
Yeah, I've heard that. And that's classy. That's great.
Yeah.
And and he drove the 2-seater for many years.
Yes, he did. He loves it.
He loves it.
Yeah.
That's great.
What a legend.
Yes.
And Scott Dixon, again, I can't put him on that level, but I do believe he's number 3 of all time. And what a drive again today.
Yes. Let's
the
look
Foyt
at
guys today. Let's look at the
Foyt guys. We're
13th and 14th, I believe.
Yes.
And they qualified well. They raced well. They're both very talented guys.
Both young.
Both young. Hopefully, Foyt can turn this into something.
I would agree because the Foyt name means a lot. Well, it means everything to Indianapolis. And Ferrucci has been, I think Indianapolis is his track. He is flirting with a win there.
Sure is.
And he is.
It's like Charlie Kimball. Never was a factor in any race, but in Indianapolis was a factor every single year.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a good team. Good young guys, and they're going to be heard from. Absolutely. Errol McLaren, of course, has got Pato. And you said he struggled all day today with everything. Anything that could go wrong did, but he still finished 11. So that's pretty good in points. They'll take from that. And Errol McLaren, you just have to know that they are going to be a strong team. Lundgaard had a very good race.
Yes, he did. And he's a talent as well.
Yes.
You look at some of these teams, and thank you for printing this out for me. Ray Hall Letterman has struggled the last few years, but they showed some signs last year. They've got a pretty talented group there. D. Francesco would be interesting to see what happens because he showed signs at Andretti, but never really put it together.
Correct. I like Ed Carpenter's new team.
Yeah, especially that's a really nice stable of drivers. I don't think there's any question it's the best talent he's ever had.
I would agree with that. And he's got some money on board. I don't know if you knew, but he is a co-owner with his own business now. A guy named Ted Gilov, Gelov is the way it's spelled, is the co-owner. Now, Ed still calls all the shots.
Right.
But Ted is he discovered Splenda. He's in a food business, and one of his products is Splenda. And he came to a race, I guess, as the story goes, 2 years ago and fell in love with it. And he has the money, and he says, I want to be a part of it.
Well, Ed Carpenter has a lot of money himself.
But one thing about Ed, and his cars are always ready for Indianapolis.
Yes, they are. And he is starting to put a B-level team together that is competitive a lot. VK was a very good driver for him. But this is a different level when you're talking about Alexander Rossi, a proven great veteran. You'd put him in the top 30 probably of all time in IndyCar racing already. And Christian Rasmussen, who is a very talented young driver from Denmark.
Yes, very much.
So I look forward to seeing what they can do at Indy. I think they with this duo will be able to put together a really good street and road package as well.
I agree. And I'm sure Ed will drive a third car.
Oh, yes, at Indy, yes.
And he's not ready to quite hang it up yet.
No.
And that's one person I think if he would happen to win, he might become the most popular driver to win in many, many years because everybody just pulls for him.
Yes, and he's from Indianapolis. The Speedway means everything to him. Same with Connor Daly, I think.
Yes.
I was really sad to see Connor Daly go from the Carpenter team because they were a really good combination at Indy.
They were, and it just didn't. I guess it just didn't work out. But
it's too bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Meyer Shank had a really good day today. They've got a couple of really talented young guys as well.
They do. Marcus Armstrong is really an up and comer. He's one that when we mentioned Pato and we mentioned Palou, Marcus Armstrong may soon be in the next breath because he is a young, talented driver. I'm sure because of the rules and things, I think there just wasn't room for him for Ganassi. But he is.
But when Ganassi wants you and goes after you when you're that young, you know you're a talent.
It's a talent, absolutely.
They've been discovering young talent since Juan Pablo Montoya.
Yes, and it's amazing how they come up with these
every single time. They've got the best scouts there are, apparently.
I was wondering. They have to have scouts out there just watching races and all over the world and just saying this is the
guy. That's right. And of course, Elio will be driving for them, going for his 5th 500 in May. So
yes.
And we didn't talk about Andretti, but Colton Hertas is talented, maybe next level down from the top two guys, but you'd have to put him on that list of young guns as well. Kyle Kirkwood is also very talented, and of course, Marcus Ericsson has proven that he could win Indy twice, although he only won it once. He kind of won it twice.
Yeah. Very well said. And Andretti team is going to be solid, and those guys. You're right. He has a stable of 3 really good drivers, and again, there's a guy
and a great team owner.
Yes, and at Indianapolis, they always ride. The cream goes to the top at Indianapolis, and he is always toward the top.
Even when they don't qualify well, they race well at Indy.
Yes. And
it would be really nice, again, another addition, Marco Andretti, another one that would be very popular.
Yes.
The last few years, as he's become part-time and not like an obstacle on road courses, and which is what he became in the end. He's still very competitive at Indy. He qualifies well. He races well. He's one of those guys who's just going to go for it. He's fun to watch. And now, of course, having lost when he was 19 years old in such a dramatic fashion, we all thought at the time it wasn't that big of a deal. But, man, he's really carried on that Andretti. Year after year, he's up there, and just something happens every time.
The Andretti curse is real. I mean, when you look and you analyze through the years.
Crazy.
Mario could have won 4 or 5 races.
Of course, if not more than that.
And
Michael could have won 4 or 5.
Michael was, Yeah, and for something just jumped up and bit him. And you're right. When Marco, as a rookie, he had it, and Sam Hornish came out of nowhere and just passed him. Yeah,
and yeah, Marco actually looked like he panicked a little in the race car at 19 years old, and got passed by a veteran who, by the way, deserved an Indy 500 championship.
Exactly, I agree with that.
Year after year, another guy who was competitive and just needed that 500 to put the stamp on it. He made a huge mistake going to NASCAR.
Yeah, I agree.
The problem was he saw that all the road and street courses were coming. He was never going to be a championship contender again. So he thought he'd take the money in NASCAR, and it turned out to be a mistake. He probably would be a multi-time Indy 500 champion had he not left.
I agree. Now, when you say made a mistake, he's probably settled somewhere and is buku rich. But
yeah, absolutely. But as far as his legend
yes, exactly.
goes, it got interrupted by a mediocre at best NASCAR career that is too bad. I think IndyCar missed him too.
Yes. So. Yes. And I'm glad, just when you touched on NASCAR, I'm really glad that Kyle Larson did the double last year. And from all I hear, he wants back and is going to get back in another car in Indy.
Yes.
And he proved
it's so good that these guys and the Formula One guys and the NASCAR guys really want to do that. It makes Indy even more special.
It does. And he proved to me he's a race driver, because he went from IndyCar. I mean, he's good. He's good.
We need to have NASCAR do the right thing and move that thing to Monday.
I agree.
Then we could get 5 or 6, 7, 8 NASCAR drivers.
That would be awesome.
It would be fantastic. You get 2 or 3 Formula One drivers if they would move Monaco to Saturday or whatever, and just do this thing and make it the World Championship.
The World Series of Racing.
Which is what it used to be.
There. Yeah.
It used to be that. You used to get all the best NASCAR drivers, all the best Formula One. Graham Hill came over. This is the world champion, Jimmy Clark. Of course, Jackie Stewart came over and was very competitive, and that's the way it was. And we'd like to see it be able to see them make a way to do that again.
I agree, 100%.
Let's talk real fast about St. Petersburg. This has turned into a staple of the IndyCar series, a fantastic way to open the series every year. It's a street course that's got a lot of passing, not a lot of passing areas, but there are places to pass. It's become a very good race every year.
It has, and it's become as they play out. Well, obviously, qualifying is huge. Qualifying is huge in on a street course. But at the same time, once that happens, then the strategies, there were 3 different strategies going today. And you did not know which one was going to be in the lead until about 20 laps left. And then you saw how it was going to play out.
The pit stops around lap 30 to go was when you finally said, oh, this is the way it's going to go. And, and that's the way it's been in IndyCar. Very rarely. It happens sometimes where a guy goes out and runs away from everybody else, but it's rare now.
It's rare. And only one caution, and that started the race, and that was too bad, especially for the 2 young guys.
And I forgot to mention that Will Power was one who sees himself as a championship contender who had a really bad day.
He had a really bad day, actually. And I noticed he was not interviewed. He didn't decline because I think he knows I messed up, and these 2 young guys. I took 2 young guys out, and that's too bad because he is a legend himself.
He is.
He is 44 years old, and maybe we're starting to see a little decline there.
I think we have the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's okay. He's still going to be one of the all-time greats. He got his Indy just a couple of years ago. You talk about a guy who struggled at Indy and finally got it. That was huge for his status and his how he'll be remembered.
Exactly. Yes.
He doesn't need to do any more to be a legend.
No, correct.
All right, Dave, go through the list and tell me your thoughts on each finisher.
Well, obviously at the top, Palou, Dixon, and Newgarden. And Newgarden, I think in the last 2 laps, either he was short on fuel or
I think it was tires. It sure seemed like tires to me, although it did look like he ran out of fuel at the end of the race.
Yeah.
And he charged hard.
He did. He was going to make a run at it. Now, McLaughlin, that finished 4th, had a great day. You go down the line. Kirkwood 5th.
That is a huge finish for him.
Yes, it is.
And that probably starts to put him in the conversation. Ericsson, of course, is a huge talent.
Yes. We mentioned Lundgaard had a great day.
Yes,
Rosenquist had a good day.
It was a really good day for the Scandinavians, that's for sure.
It was. And Renas.
Yep.
But I really sing the praises of Rossi.
Yes.
Because
there's no doubting his talent.
No doubting his talent. He started, in 20th or way back. And, of course, everybody came in for tires. He rolled the dice. Didn't. But that put him up front for quite a while. And he came in with, I think, 30 laps to go. And he had to use the softer tire. He ran the rest of the way on the soft tire.
Which others were saying you couldn't even go 15 laps on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he rode that thing out and held his position and drove it to a 10th place finish.
Yeah, he is a talent.
Pato was 11th. Rahal, Graham.
Good day for Graham.
Yes.
I've always thought Graham was really talented, but the last couple of years have kind of said otherwise. It's been a real struggle for him with his dad's team. He'd be another very popular Indy 500 win.
Absolutely, he would. We talked about Malukas, and we talked about Malukas and Ferrucci. They're 2 young guys, and we talked about the Foyt team.
Absolutely.
That's
the best duo of drivers they've had. Probably since back in the IRL days.
Yeah.
Of course, they had Sato for a long time, but they never had another driver with him who was could win.
Yeah.
Should be a good year for Foyt.
It will. It will. And then the rest, there are some young ones there.
Good to see Connor Daly in 17th on a street course.
Yes.
He of course is one of the best oval drivers, but there aren't enough ovals left to justify him.
Let's talk about that, because I agree. And like I said, I was at Lebanon, Tennessee, the oval race.
And that one's not going to be an oval for very much longer. They're going to go back to the street course.
Oh, really?
They are.
My gosh, that is
after next year.
Oh, that was the best venue. It was just perfect.
Maybe they could do both.
That would be, and I would love to see racing come back to the Kentucky Speedway.
Yeah, absolutely. We need it at Michigan. It would be great at Pocono. Milwaukee's got to stay.
Yes.
Iowa, of course, has become a staple. And look, Roger Penske's in charge of things now. Build another super speedway. There's got to be a location that would be perfect for a super speedway.
Yes.
That you could start doing a Triple Crown. We can start making this thing. Everything about IndyCar the last 2 decades have been fantastic, except for the marketing. It looks like they're making a step in the right direction with the marketing. Let's hope, because this series deserves to have a great product. Speaking of which, one more thing I want to bring up. The so grateful that Townsend Bell and James Hinchcliffe were able to go from Peacock to Fox, because they are by far the best duo of announcers we've ever had. I don't know why Kevin Lee wasn't just made the main guy. I love his passion. I'd rather him than some guy from the outside, but still, really good crew.
It was well done today. Fox Sports did a really good job, especially the intro and all before the race. They did real well. I hope that they can continue with that, because
it's going to be hard to beat Peacock.
It is.
They showed you everything on the Peacock on the app.
Yes. So IndyCar is looking up. I think you kind of said it. This is a great product.
Well, the one thing that really has helped IndyCar is the fact that the network television stations are desperate for live programming now. That's the only thing people watch on network television are game shows like The Bachelor and stuff like that, and live television, getting itself in front of a lot more eyeballs and people going, oh, this is really good.
All they need is a one race. All they need is to look at it and say, all they need to get everybody in Indiana, if you have not gone to the Indy 500, do so at least once.
or at least to a day of practice, at the very least.
At the very least. And you will just be amazed. And most people catch the bug at that point. It's
Yes,
just
they
like,
do.
this is amazing.
Producer Susie did not. She's one of the few. My wife just did not catch it when she went.
My wife likes it, but she that's a long story. I won't say. It's an inside.
It's a long
joke.
day.
It is, and she's been banned from the race by me because. Well, let's leave it at that. But it's hilarious. It's a hilarious story, but we're not going to go there today.
Well, the thing about Susie is, I said in the last 2 laps, it was a dash for the win, and there were 399,999 people standing and one sitting because she just did not enjoy. But she likes watching the races on TV. She did not like the experience of going. Too many people for her.
Well, and I'll say this. If you've watched, say, the Indianapolis 500 on TV and say, yeah, it's good. But in person,
comparison.
Race is no comparison to TV because you don't see the speed.
No,
you
just don't, taken because it's such a big track.
Yes. And when you get there and see the speed, it's just
and the size of it all is just, it hits you as a monumental event because there are so many people there. While you're there, you realize that you're part of something big.
Yes. And the pre-race, I will say this, and I said it last year when we did our podcast, the pre-race, that is the best done for Memorial Day weekend of any sport.
Absolutely.
And let's talk, here's another
And it's
thing.
A whole month. That's the other thing.
It is. I go up there usually for a practice and maybe the carb day, which has become really good, and the race. So I get up there 3 days. If I were lived right around the corner where I grew up from, I would probably be there 5 or 6 days. But it's great. Another thing, March 2nd. This has to be one of the greatest days. Now follow me. Indy race started. Major League Baseball's Cactus League. NBA still going if you're a fan.
I'm a fan.
College basketball is right at its zenith of time.
Absolutely.
Right at its height.
March is great.
And high school basketball.
Yes.
Start this week, and the girls' state finals were last week. I'm like,
swimming state finals were this week.
It's just.
If you're a sports fan, this is a really good time. Right now, I believe right now through Memorial Day is the best time for sports of the whole year. And I love football, and I get that football is king and that New Year's Day is big, and there's a lot. But for me, living in Indiana, the beginning of March to the end of May is the best. And the weather here is amazing, and it's a really good time to be a Hoosier.
Amen. Exactly.
Dave, you and I are going to do this after every race. Sometimes it'll be live. Sometimes it'll be on the phone. And from time to time, when we think it's worthy, especially in May, you and I will get together and we'll talk for a half hour like tonight.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much to Dave for joining the Central Indiana Sports Report again. We're going to talk to Mr. Chanley, Coach Chanley, about IndyCar racing before and after every race. And the month of May, he and I will talk IndyCar all month. Please check in for that. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Even if you're already subscribed to Amazon, Apple, SoundCloud, or Spotify, please go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susan.